So to start off, adding volunteer brings you to this screen. Only required fields are first and last name. If you do have email, however, you will be able to send a setup link email to that volunteer, allowing them to take control of their account. The more information you can put in here, the better, obviously, for demographic and reporting purposes. So I would recommend, if you do have birthday and gender, probably grab those, as those may become important, especially birthday, for calculating ages and what have you. Communication preferences will also be important later on, specifically the send email preference, as long as they do have an email. So that's the basics of adding a volunteer. To search for a volunteer, we can use the quick search and just type in something like Bob. That'll bring up every Bob in the system, first name and last name. So if the last name was Bob or had some combination, some piece of it being Bob, they would come up. Here in my demo system, I have 3 Bobs. We can also do advanced searches, which allows us to search by, Bob being just the first name, by their unique PIN number, or we can search by, address information. We can also look at other fields in the system, including custom data sets, gender, for example, age, birth date, age added into there, skill, and a variety of other things. If you need to search by something that's not currently listed, just let us know. And then you just hit search. So for example, if I wanted everybody who had an email, so email, come on, is not empty, this would bring up everybody who has an email. Doesn't matter what it is, as long as it's present.
Eric?
Yes.
Is there a capability to search for teams? So it's volunteers and teams, team names?
I don't have any teams on my account. I believe that any search that would bring up an individual would bring up a team. So if the team matched, here, we can actually, let's go into your system and we can try it out. So hands on, we should bring you up.
So if they're a member of the team, it'll tell you what team they're a member of?
Oh, that it doesn't do. I don't believe that's an option. So I can't search for, oh, wait, yeah, it would show me in their record, but it wouldn't bring the team up directly. So if I searched for Bob, it wouldn't bring up Bob and bring up his team, but it would bring up Bob, and then by looking at Bob, I should be able to see what team he's on. Is that what you mean?
Well, what we're interested in is searching for a specific team. For example, in Jacksonville, you probably have about 300 military organizations that have formed teams of volunteers. Mm-hmm. Additionally, we partnered with a lot of corporations for corporate projects, and having that capability to pull up that corporation or that military team is very useful.
Okay. Do you know the name of one of those teams, and then we can pull them up?
Let's say Naval Hospital, Jacksonville, Florida.
Okay. So let's just try Naval, just because I'm lazy, and that should bring up the team. Now we could have been more specific, but yeah, there it is, Naval Hospital. So you can search by the teams, and I
Click
do.
On that.
Which one?
Naval team.
First one.
The first one.
Okay.
Is there a way to see who is attached to this team?
I think you click on the clean green one.
If you click on each, so if you click on each opportunity, can you click on the first opportunity?
Well,
it's not clickable. It's just.
We used to have
Edit view schedule. Edit view schedule. Go to remove team, and instead of that, do edit view schedule, please.
Mm-hmm.
It used to
No, that's the team times. That's the schedule.
Okay.
Okay. That needs to be able to show us the people on the team.
Okay.
Okay.
Because we would go in there and verify their hours. Where do we do that?
You could do that on the opportunity, or you can do it from here if they had any unverified hours. So I could click on this see their unverified hours and be able to verify it.
Well,
But currently there's no
So we're
hours to
just
verify.
the team, not the individuals that volunteered with that team.
Say that again?
So we're just,
well, for example, we do the Martin Luther King Jr. Day of Service.
Mm-hmm.
I may have Regional Hospital Jacksonville commit 20 individuals to show up and participate at that event.
Mm-hmm.
However, due to our sign-in sheets, maybe only 12 showed up.
Mm-hmm.
What we're interested in is, I believe Debbie's question is to be able to verify the 12 that actually showed up, to show that information, where the 8 that didn't show up wouldn't be given credit for the hours of service.
Gotcha. At this time, my understanding is teams are the hours are logged as a whole against the team, not against the members. So the team would have the hours logged. So if 8 people showed up and did X many hours, then collectively, then that would be the hours for the team, but it wouldn't be logged against the people individually.
Well, we need them logged against, they are logged against the people individually, but we need to be able to look at those individuals. So if I clicked on verified hours 18, I would want it to come up with those people, be it 4 people or 6 people that make up that 18 hours. Okay, that would be really important in what we do.
Okay. I'm going to have to get back to you on Teams then in that regard, because it sounds like we might need to either make some modifications or add it so that it's listing the team members.
And it may be, maybe you just don't know. We need to know how we can see them, how we can verify their hours, how we can take care of their unverified hours, okay?
And the other with that is the communication aspect of doing a follow-up, thank you for your service, or a follow-up to those individuals, the next event's going to be, et cetera, et cetera. So there's quite a few strands you can go down by accessing that data that way.
And I know that exists through the communications module, that it would allow you. But yes, we need to see how that works. And at the automatic, you can set it up at the automatic end of the event. It sends them an email, thank you for your service. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and that's it set up again.
Well, it's the team of the individual. That's the key point. If it's set up for the team, it would go to the 8 individuals that didn't show up.
so basically treating a
versus
team
12.
like
Yeah,
an individual.
Okay,
Yeah.
Eric, are you understanding the issue?
I heard that last comment about treating teams like individuals. So
Yeah, I think that, and it needs to be more robust. We need to be able to, so for example, we need to be able to click on Clean Green Earth monthly cleanups, click on that, see the dates and times, who volunteered, and who signed up for it, so we could go in and click on each of the team members, send them each an email,
Or send all at once an email.
or send all at once, but we need to have that the option to do that. And then we need to be able to, after the project, come back in, and based on a sign-in sheet, we should also be able to print out a sign-in sheet based on who signed in here, and then also be able to come back in and verify the hours that the individual volunteers did for that project.
And if some of them signed in on the manual sheet, not the computer login, we need to be able to actually add their hours in.
So really what you want is that if a team signs up, it really doesn't sign the team up for an opportunity, it signs up all the individuals, and thus you can track all of them individually. It's kind of what I'm hearing.
No, you need a team because, for example, with Martin Luther King Jr. Day of Service, you may have 32 teams that have committed to that project. So you want to be able to access them as a team and or access that team and verify what individuals were there, for all the things that we need to do to manage that entire evolution that day.
And see, Eric, when we talked with Matisse, he's got it, and I've seen it. So I think there's just a communication issue here, because he was showing Debbie and I, the ability to communicate with the entire team, the ability to sign up your team, and those that were members, it would automatically connect to their name, but those that were not, it would put their name in and allow them to go on the system and add the rest of their information for tracking in the future. So we could capture their name and their email as a volunteer coordinator. This isn't just an admin. This is a volunteer coordinator would have the ability to do this as well. And at that point, they could be sent an email saying, please go in and fill out the rest of your profile, so that then they become a legitimate, real volunteer. So they're individuals, but the teams are just the collaboration grouping of those individuals. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way it should be running.
Mm-hmm.
And I did see that with Matish. Debbie and I saw something similar to that a month ago.
You need the macro level
Yeah.
and the micro level.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So
I'll have to look into that, because that I'm.
all right, you may just need to share this recording with Matish, because I think he needs to see what we're needing. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad we're recording it.
Okay. Excuse me?
I have a question.
Yeah.
But I want to make sure that we wrapped up with this. Do we have any more questions with it? When you go, can you go back to adding a volunteer?
Okay.
Okay, when you go over to reminder notification preference, it says receive all notifications or receive single notification. What's the difference there?
On an opportunity, you can set up notifications to go out at various points. Whether or not a volunteer gets each notification individually would be receive all notifications, or if they get it kind of as a summed up single notification is this option here. So they could get one email with all the reminders.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so we left off at searching for volunteers and or teams. Any questions about that or adding volunteers?
Well, can we go back to the reminder notification preference? What would prompt, and I apologize, what would prompt them for them to receive a single notification if you've sent multiple emails? Is that something that we would need to do that would say, okay, go ahead and send these 3 emails to that individual?
Yeah, it's in the opportunity. It's in an opportunity. It's when you're. It's in the opportunity itself. So I can say send an email out.
Can you show us what that looks like
yeah.
on the other end?
Let me switch over to my demo system, which should have an opportunity already set up that we can take a look at.
So does the individual set that up, or the lead?
The admin sets it up when working on an opportunity.
Okay.
So in-house, to me, I would make sure they get every email.
So
I guess
when you manage an opportunity, there's this page here for setting up various automatic reminder notifications and thank you letters and things like that. So if I was to get, if I was 7 days out from like 3 opportunities, instead of getting 3 emails, that option would let me get them all, would wrap them all into one in the morning.
So, but what would be the purpose of getting 3 emails of the same information?
It would be different opportunities. So if I had 3 different opportunities that I'd signed up for, all of them were today for some reason, maybe different parts of the day, and they all had, reminders going out today, I would get 3 separate emails unless I used that combine option, in which case I'd get 1 email with all 3 reminders that I have opportunities today. So I may have something in the morning, around noon, and then something maybe in the evening. So 3 different opportunities, each one has its own reminder and thus its own letter.
Right.
Probably not too common though, to be honest, unless you got someone who's volunteering a lot, and maybe they have something today and 7 days from now they might get 2, or some combination thereof.
So again, all means they'll receive all of them in one email.
Let me go back to what did it say? It's yeah, all notifications you'd get, 3 separate ones, while on one day, while single would give you one joint notification with all 3.
Okay, that makes it, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
That
I know
makes
that'd be
sense.
my preference. So, but some people might choose to want to get them broken up. I know I get bombarded with emails, so I'd rather just one myself.
Gotcha.
Well, I was just trying to compare this with the same day.
Okay.
Okay.
Anything else with creating or searching for volunteers?
No, but I'd like to take you down a rabbit hole.
Okay.
Go back to dashboard and call it dashboard.
Okay.
See,
Okay, it says
Mhm.
active teams, 7,400 active teams. Click on that.
we're on the
No, we're in the back end. But I
This is
just
your
asked
this
him.
is your data.
Okay, how do I get to that naval team here? This is another view of what you were trying to show us.
Well, I mean,
Search. I've tried it already. I'm in it on my own computer, and I was trying, and it says 7,400. I need a way to search to find naval in this, so I can find that naval team out of that 7,400. Okay?
naval
And I'm learning. This
and
is
enter.
important because I was struggling. I'm over there on the right looking at preferences.
Oh, you have to click.
Okay.
Click
Now, can you then now click on Naval Hospital Jacksonville and see what it gives us
Correct.
in his team? Will it
This is
show us his volunteers?
At this time, it does not appear to do such. This is what we came
Dang
across
it.
earlier.
Okay, it went right back to where we were. That's what I needed to see. I was trying to go into that realm to see if that would get us into the right world.
This is the only
Okay.
the only page with any data regarding the team. But no, I'm with you. It should tell me the team members, so
Okay.
if available.
All right. Now, how can we see Naval Hospital Jacksonville's team members? Is there any way? That's the big question.
But that would be per event.
No, they don't, I mean,
Theoretically, I should be able to build a report for that, but I've never tried it at this point.
Okay, I'll go play with that.
But
You keep going
ideally,
with
it
them.
should be
Go
on
ahead.
this page. Ideally, it should be on this page.
All right, let me go play with that. You keep going with them.
Okay. Any other questions about searching or adding volunteers?
I don't think so at this point.
Okay.
Here's a point of clarification I needed with what you just did, Eric, is that I assume searching is within a page. So when I went to that team and called up the teams, I was looking for a search down below. I did not go up to that quick search up above. So I'm sitting here trying to adjust the searches. So that in an educational level for everybody is where do you go to search for anything? I never thought to go up there, and that definitely will make a difference. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here scrolling through 7,400 trying to find naval.
Yeah, that'd be a bit tedious. No, just
Yeah, it
use the
was.
search in the advanced searches.
Okay.
They'll do a
That's
global
great.
search. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. All right. Keep going.
So now that we have searching for volunteers and adding volunteers, we now dive a bit into configuration. So this is the stuff that will lead up to the creation of opportunities. So we're going to go to the main menu, and we're going to go to configurations. One thing you may also want to do, and we'll touch on it, is design my public site. So we'll touch on that after we do configurations, since that'll be important. So configurations. And there are a variety of configurations in here. For expediency purposes, we won't go through every single one of them. I will point out that about half of these are search tags, the way to configure various search tags, which will be used for assigning to opportunities to help people find them. So that'd be your activity types, your causes, age group required, population served, age group served, and skills. So these are used for mostly for searching purposes. Skills and causes are used for searching for what people are interested in on the back end. they're pretty straightforward to create. For example, causes, like most of the others, are what I call a line item configuration, line item edit. It's really you just have an entry and you hit add. Not much fancier than that. Just as kind of a fun tool, this left-hand menu can be expanded and you can actually navigate a bit over here more easily. So this is where, for example, I could go on to skills and go and create skills there. Skills are a little different from, say, causes in that we have skill groups and then the skills within them. So if I go add new skill, it's going to have me select or create a parent skill. So I'm in your database, I don't want to add anything. And then from there, I can edit the skill group and add more child skills. So if you need to make a new skill group, add new skill, I guess I should say skill group, which is what I call it. And if you want child skills, subsets of a skill, you can edit it and add those children. So a little different from the line item, but not too dissimilar. So that's
I have a quick question.
Yes.
Are we going to have the ability to mine these skills? For example, I used to work with the state, and we would look for individuals, and I wanted to have an 80 percentile match of the needed job skills in the individual's resume. So if we have an opportunity that requires, I'm just going to say, 32 skills, can we go into the system and see if we have a match of volunteers with those 32 skills, or maybe we set a threshold 28 of 32 or a minimum of 20 of 32 or whatever it may be.
You can search for skills, but no, we don't have a threshold functionality.
How many skills can an individual put on their profile?
Infinite. I know of no technical limitation.
Okay, but we're presetting the choices. They're not making them up on their own. We've got them in there, and they're selecting from the supply that we give them, correct?
Correct. They're
Okay,
choosing from what comes with the system, and I think they can choose from what you provide, as well as when you create an opportunity, you get to choose, what skills that opportunity requires, so that people can look for opportunities with certain skills. So if I'm
well, where that question came from, Eric, is, for example, I believe we're partnered with about 150, 120 nonprofit agencies.
Mm-hmm.
Periodically, we'll get a phone call that says, I need X number of volunteers with these skills, and it would be nice to be able to go in and mine that information to find those volunteers, pull out their names and email addresses because they've shown an interest in that organization, they have those skills, immediately help our partner agency with a list of individuals that we have in the system that, hey, these individuals you can contact because they have the skills you need, they've shown the interest in your organization.
Totally doable. So going back to advanced search, what I could do is say, okay, I need volunteers. I'm in your system. Volunteers that have a certain skill, so I can say skill in, and then I can list out the skills I'm interested in. So that basically says they have one of these skills. So I could do just one skill,
Correct.
I could do several. So that's basically what you're looking for. I couldn't say they have, 3 out of 40 of 3 out of 5 of these. That I can't do. But I could say they have at least one of them.
Okay, and that's going to lead me into another strand, and it may have been fixed, and I apologize if it has been. I believe, and maybe we need to have the capability when an individual initially signs up in the Hands-On Network system for Hands-On Jacksonville, putting their skills was a function of the old system, and I think that still needs to, be maintained.
I think it's there, but it's after the initial. The point being that Kim had in marketing was to get them in and signed up immediately. Then they go to their profile once they receive their confirmation, and they fill out the information about themselves, which includes those skill sets. Correct, Eric?
They can fill out the skill sets.
Or they can do it all at once. But when they're coming to our website, normally it wasn't filling everything out at once. You wanted them in, and then you asked fill out their profile, which included skill sets and all of these other
Correct.
things. Okay.
Correct. Yes.
But can they update that when they find an opportunity?
All the
Yes.
time.
Yeah. Yeah.
All the time. They have complete access to their profile.
Okay. All right. So going back to configurations, there's a couple other configurations that you want to be aware of. So most of those, like I said, here are search tags. A couple of particularly important ones are agreements, which are basically waivers. So since you asked me to kind of, I think you said to just kind of go over things and not to go through all the nitty gritty. So I won't go through the nitty gritty of creating a form.
Right.
But basically, add new form and, provide the details and what type of org or volunteer does it apply to. And then we can use these on application forms and other fun things like that. We also have custom data sets. This is a very important feature. This is how we can extend the system. And basically a data set is a collection of questions that you might be asking on a application form. You may also just be using it on the back end for your own purposes. So add a new data set, give it a name, a description, and is it connected to any particular programs? Is it for volunteers, for organizations? Is it used on application forms? We have these little question marks to kind of let you know what they do. Once you have a custom data set created, let's just edit one. Excuse me. You can add fields to it, and these fields are basically the questions. And we talked about this. Oh wait, no, that was somebody else. Same exact questions that somebody else had. Interesting. I think they were also a hands-on client.
Because we're all hands-on and we have the same needs.
I know. That's probably why I was being thrown off, because I've done a couple hands-on trainings in the last month or two, and I think it's getting a little confused up in my head who I've talked to, because a lot of your configurations look the same. But when you create a field, in addition to different types of fields, which are mostly self-explanatory, you can make it required, which basically means if you put it on an application form, a volunteer must fill it out. Or you can make it staff use only, and so thus even if you do put the custom data set on the application form, certain questions you don't want put on the form, but you still need to track it and you still want it in the data set. So for example, date minor form received. This would not be staff, this would probably be an example of staff use only. You would not have the volunteer fill that out because it's really kind of more of an internal tracking mechanism. So this is an example where you would do staff use only, save the field, and even if we put this data set online in an application form, which I think was the intent here, they aren't going to have that question. So any questions about custom data sets? It's an important piece, so I want to make sure it's understood.
Can those be populated to like a check-in sheet if we have volunteers that are working with children, and in there we've required the minor release form or whatever it is, blah, blah, blah. Do we have the capability of having that block being indicated on a check-in sheet?
Yes. So, well, let me do the caveat. If we do build, if the system has any built-in check-in, print check-in feature put in, which I don't remember, I think that's something that's been talked about but not implemented yet, it wouldn't be on there. But if we built a report for you, which would be really easy, that provided, here's the volunteers for an opportunity, and we could then, incorporate any of the custom fields that they have available. So built into the system, sadly no, because different organizations will have different fields. Into a report that could be used for that purpose, absolutely.
There's an important issue for liability and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Does when they sign up for an opportunity, does it remind them to make sure they have a release?
It does not, because it's not a system-generated field. What you could do is make it one of the agreements and add it to their application form, and thus they electronically sign it. But if you do need a physical copy, then obviously you're going to need to get that in person and not through the system.
But you can, in your custom data sets, make it a requirement before they're accepted as a volunteer to have completed that form, correct?
Really what that required field does is means that if I'm filling out the form, whether staff or online, and it's not staff use only, I can't save the page without filling in that field.
Okay.
But it's not going to stop the person from actually going through the application process. That being said, covered in the next training is the ability to require that a volunteer be vetted, i.e. approved, for an opportunity, in which case, as part of your procedures, you would make sure that field has been filled in. So that's more of a procedural item than a technical one, only because it's a custom field and we can't hard code logic in for those. So, did that answer the question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, cool. Realized I kind of trailed off a little there. I was like, alrighty. So a couple other configuration items of importance. Continuing on, our programs. This is kind of a high-level thing. You probably don't need to touch these very often. These are basic your major initiatives and the things that volunteers' opportunities might be linked to. So, the Hope Fund, Teens and Youth, Celebrate Good, whatever these are, a Visit from St. Nicholas program, these are basically higher levels things that opportunities and organizations can be linked to. Volunteers will be able to learn about your programs online, find opportunities for them, and so on and so forth. So they're usually things, major initiatives, parts of your operations. Excuse me?
I'm just telling them that each one of those goes to a web page, and those are our internal programs. So when you're looking at the external site, these are connected in ways to them. So when we're talking programs, we're not talking programs for the agencies in this case. These are our internal programs.
Correct. That's another way to, yeah.
All right, just making sure they understood.
Yeah, I realize that program is a term that is honestly kind of almost overused in our language because I know some people call them, events are called programs, and then you've got, programming, which is in terms of, programming as in computers, and then you have program the way it's used here and in other systems. So, kind of can be a little confusing for some folk. Okay, next one, rarely used program level security. This is kind of like a user role kind of setup where only certain people can access certain programs in your system. It's not used a whole lot, but basically what it means is that this user has access to this program. And it appears that you have it set up, so it doesn't look like you are using it. It looks like just about everybody has access to everything, but this would let you basically say that certain users can access certain programs, otherwise they cannot. So not used a whole lot, but figured I'd mention it. Sponsors, this is where you can list who your sponsors are, and they will be displayed online. When you configure a program, you can say who the program sponsors are, and on that program's page, only those sponsors would be listed. This is effectively just for display purposes, as opposed to something like the CRM, where that's where you'd record the donation aspect of sponsorships. But this is just for display purposes. Volunteer sign up, kind of an important option. This is basically what will be asked of a volunteer during the actual sign-up process when they create their account. So this is not when they apply for an opportunity. That's the application form, which I don't know if we're going to get to today. That's the application form. This is the actual registration process. Currently, everything is on, including skills, as those came up earlier, but you could modify this and simplify it if you wanted to.
Yeah, we had it on our website where it was literally just about the name and, simple. And then you would send them a note saying, thank you for joining. Please go to your profile, fill this out, and be sure and look at opportunities. So
and that's what you could do also with the sign-up message, is you could basically turn all of this off and put in the sign-up message, as well as maybe like an email you send out, make sure to update your profile. So that's up to you. So make sure to check out your volunteer sign-up option. This is your database right now, so just note that it is currently all on.
This is our database?
This is currently your database that we're in.
All right, thank you.
So if they're all on, are they required to fill them out at that time?
Yeah, it's your
Correct.
better.
Which is running into trouble.
Yeah.
Okay? And he was in trouble because he kept asking for volunteer forms and minor forms, and the people weren't minors. and it didn't ask for a birthday, so it was
Gotcha.
getting us in trouble. Okay.
Yep. And that actually might also tie into your custom data sets. So that's where it's important to review those
It
and
did.
see. Okay, cool. Alrighty. All right, so putting those aside, email notifications, which we kind of just talked on a little bit. These are admin and user messages sent out during given situations. So for example, a volunteer signs up. This is the welcome email that they get. It currently says welcome to Fundly Connect. You'll probably want to change that to welcome to Hands on Jacksonville. And this is where you can put your message and verbiage about going into your profile, for example. Apparently it's empty right now. So
Yeah, go in there and make some changes.
Eric, can we go back to the volunteer sign-up data sets? I hate to beat a dead horse. I just looked through my notes. One of the system, the way it operated is if you couldn't answer a specific question, it didn't save the information at that point. If I needed to log out and go get that information, or maybe later on I wanted to add in skill sets, you had to start all the way from the beginning.
yeah, what just happened?
But
Is there any way that that information could be saved up to that point, so when they get back in, they could just pick up where they left off?
Say the word for later.
Hold
Yeah,
on.
like,
Because I know volunteers, they
like
can
filling
get
out a
frustrated.
form, yeah.
well, and
Yeah.
I think that's why Kim had them just doing the basic information to get them in, get them started, and then the rest of it is through the profile. So you would literally say nothing is mandatory, and you would literally have nothing on your sign-up sheet except for those basic few things you need to communicate with them, okay? And at that point, all of that necessary stuff that stops them will be gone. So that's in our setup.
So,
I understand that, but even if they're going in later and they get halfway through their skills, if they have to stop for whatever reason, it doesn't save that information.
right.
Is there not a save button?
Save your work to this point, and then
Eric, is there a save button on a profile?
Yes, I mean there's the save button at the bottom. So I mean,
Yeah.
as long as it wasn't, if it was a required field, it will be required to save the page. So I would have to at least fill in the required field, but anything that was optional, I could come back later and fill out.
Okay, so we would have to make sure anything that we think would give them hiccups or pause that they would have to go look up is not a required field at that moment.
Correct.
So otherwise they would not be able to save the page. So that's in our setup again, okay? And that's the things we need to know. Because that's given us grief, because we set up too many things as mandatory.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But what can they do just in that initial, without filling that information in? Can they sign up for projects?
Yeah, I mean, as long as they have an account, they can sign up for projects, and then at that point, it's just a matter of what you put on the application form.
I feel like there's certain data we need, demographics and stuff that we need.
Well,
you can send another email to remind them, but will the system do it automatically?
yeah, before we approve them as a volunteer, you can
That's
say,
what I'm
"Please fill out
asking
your
you."
profile."
Okay, so what can they do?
Welcome
They're not
one
approved.
says, here you are, thank you for joining. Go
They're not
ahead and fill out
approved
your
yet.
profile. We do approve our volunteers, do we not, or not? I think we have it, that's in our setup again. whether
Yes,
each one has to be approved or
each
not.
opportunity you'll specify if you require approval.
Each opportunity
Each
or
opportunity.
each volunteer?
What about the volunteers when they sign up? Isn't there one section in the data sets where you can say each volunteer has to be approved or not?
No, not on,
Okay.
not for registration as an account. However, to apply for an actual opportunity, you can require that that opportunity requires approval.
A minimum level of data
Yeah.
to be
Yeah.
approved. Okay. All right.
Okay. So just a
And
warning.
where is that?
That's in the configuration of opportunity, which we have not gotten to yet.
Okay.
Just to warn you, I did lose internet for like a minute there, so some of that conversation I did miss and is not on the recording. I think I was able to catch up with y'all, but I just figured I'd mention that when you watch the recording, you may notice that my internet just kind of went out for a moment.
Okay.
So I just figured I'd warn you. Um,
Thank you.
yeah, just put that out there. So yes, so continuing on with configurations. We got the notification settings, social sharing. So we'll see, maybe not today, but when we complete the creation of opportunities and when volunteers actually sign up for opportunities, they will have the option to share it, or you will have the option to share the opportunity on social media. So you can create an opportunity and then share it to social media and say, hey, we just have this opportunity become available. People should sign up for it. Or a volunteer would, be able to share it and say, hey, I just signed up for this. You should too. So they can say whatever they want because it's their social media account. However, with these settings, you can put basically default text that they can use when they share it to social media. So you may have noticed that on some sites you go to share something and they say, some predefined text that you can then wipe out and replace. This is that predefined text for you. So when you
So
publish an opportunity,
basically, we don't endorse is that what you're saying?
no, so if I went to a site and I don't know, I was listening to music. That's the first example that comes to my mind. And I click the share button on that music and it goes to my Facebook. It may auto-populate the text, I'm currently listening to this song, but I can
Okay.
override that I'm currently listening to this song is what you can put here. So, we have a new opportunity, come check it out. I just volunteered for this opportunity, you should too, or whatever you'd want to put, something probably better than what I'd say. But then they can always override that and put whatever they want.
They can override it. Okay, and so what we've got is our new marketing person in here. So a lot of this information, that's going to be her job to set that up for the other team. So all of this is going to be done before we train the staff. Okay?
Okay, cool. Yeah, so your marketing person, these are he or she's big options is email notifications and social sharing.
Yep, those are hers. She's here. She's smiling. Hi, Eric.
Hello. Alrighty. So the last option on here is organization type. Let's load that up.
I just wanted to ask one quick question on that social sharing notification settings.
Mm-hmm.
If we're at a site doing a project and we realize there's a glitch in there, can an individual do that from their phone or an iPad if our marketing person is there, or do they have to be online on a computer to do this?
You mean to set the to do the configuration?
Right, and the reason I ask is we did a very high dollar, high level project with Fidelity, who put a lot of money into a certain project at a location in Jacksonville that came up during that project and wanted that instantaneous social media aspect. I'm not an expert in it. I couldn't remember if it was Facebook, Snapchat, or whatever, but I do remember that the individual needed to get in and change some type of configuration or whatever to get whatever it was that needed to be released. That's what prompted that question.
You have access to the internet.
I guess it should. Yeah, I don't see why they wouldn't be able to. Normally this is kind of something you kind of set early on and don't change very often.
I understand that.
System-wide,
this is different than at an event where they're posting. What we will have are tags that they'll use, hashtags, all of these kind of things that'll come through this department that'll make that stuff happen. This is when they sign up for the opportunity before they ever go out there. This is an early on. This is not at the event thing. There are other communication things that go on there. There's other ways of sharing throughout this program. This piece is not it. Okay, this is when they sign up for the opportunity. They get the opportunity. It's a marketing piece for us because it can allow them, if they choose, correct, Eric? It's their choice.
Yes.
To let everybody know what they just did.
Correct.
So it's huge for us in the marketing side. Okay.
Correct.
I have one more question as far as the social sharing.
Mm-hmm.
When they choose to share this, what link or what imagery is associated with that post when it automatically posts to Twitter or Facebook? Is it
It's-
Hands on Jacksonville, or is it just a general link to this opportunity?
It's a link to the opportunity, and then whatever content is on that opportunity page. Not knowing the particulars of how Facebook and how Twitter and what have you pull that stuff, I can't really speak too specifically on that. But yeah, I know like Facebook, it just grabs like the first image it finds on the page, so that probably would just be your logo.
Okay.
So
So if it's our program or if it's feeding homeless Northeast Florida, it might pick their logo. Okay.
correct.
So
Yeah,
whatever
I'm not
it is,
100% sure how Facebook picks things, and I know when you post, you can, if there's multiple choices, that you can kind of skim through them, but most people probably don't. So I can't really attest to what that will look like precisely.
But it's really picking from whatever was on that
Yes.
opportunity posting. If they didn't put a photo on there or they didn't have their company logo on there, it might have no imagery to you.
Correct.
Okay, got it. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Cool.
Good question.
Yeah, no, good one. Last one, organization type. This is just so organizing your organizations. So this is a line item config, nothing's fancy here. And that's all the configurations. You had questions along the way, but anything before we move on? We're getting to the top of the hour, so technically we're almost at the end of today. But we can push on a little bit further if there's no questions about config right now. Okay, so this will be important for your, I guess, your marketing team folk, is Design My Public Site. This is basically the look and feel of your Hands-on Jacksonville volunteer portal. So here we have it. One thing I do need to comment on, as part of the migration, we will need to replace the images that you want here. So if you want, go ahead and email those to support@fundly.com, and we'll put them back in for you. I know we had some images in there to kind of display it up until the migration, but with the migration, we are going to need those images again. So you can just send those along, or you can always import them, add them yourself, and I'll show you that right now, how to do that. Pretty straightforward. So here's our preview. If I want to edit the template, edit template, and I can edit various sections. So if you do want to put in the logo, you can go edit and put in a logo. Or if you want to put some images in here.
Yeah. She's really comfortable with it, and Kim has done most of it, so the rest of the group doesn't need this one.
Okay. Then.
So, and I'll have her go watch the video on how to set it up.
Okay. Yeah, I think I do have a video for it right now. So.
Okay, go ahead. Wait, Rick does have a couple of issues.
Yes.
If you could clear all that out, and I'll show you. For example, if I'm a volunteer.
Okay, you're in the template. You're not in the site. You're
Yeah,
in how do I edit words on this page.
Well, I'm leading down that road.
Okay, all right, just double checking.
If I'm a volunteer and then I click on organizations that I'm interested in, you can do your organization search.
Mm-hmm.
Say I scroll all the way down to the 40th organization, and then I hit the back arrow. It does not return back to where that organization was. You got to start all the way from the top. So the configuration of the page, is there any way, like a lot of websites you visit, if you click on like a link and then you hit your back arrow on your computer to go back to that page originally where you found that link, it takes you right to that spot on that page.
Okay.
That doesn't happen when you use this system.
That's another thing that needs to go to Natasha or Tanner or somebody. That's not part of laying out the page. That's an operational efficiency of the program.
Is it?
Yeah.
So there's
It's
not
nothing
a
to do
setup.
with this.
It's
what
not
we're
anything
working
we
in
can control, is what you're
here.
saying.
Not at this moment. They have to do it in the software side. That's something
Gotcha.
that can be written up and turned in. Okay?
And then another one, it may be redundant here,
Perfect.
but when you look at all your partner agencies that have been populated in the system, there's a lot of them that have excessive phone numbers, digits on there. Instead of the standard,
9.
9, it may have 13, it may have 15, And I suspect that when it was populated, maybe those are extension numbers that got combined with the phone number. There's multiple ones. For example, Best Buddies of Jacksonville, Cathedral Arts Project, Child Guidance Center. Their phone numbers are very suspect when you look at them.
What we're going to have to do is we're sending everybody an email as we bring this on live, and we say, please go in and update your info, and they can clean it all up there. This is part of the migration. It's part of the data, and it's just the way it came in and the way it was in the old. Yeah.
Poster addresses have changed.
Yeah, addresses have changed, all of that. So they're going to automatically, when we go live or before, get an email coming from Fundly and us that says, okay, we're upgrading to this new system. Please go in, double check all of your information, make sure your contact's up to date, make sure everything. Yeah. Okay, and so that will happen, and at that point, it's incumbent on them to change and update their own profiles. That's not a software. I mean, we could, as admins, schedule a volunteer to go in and look up everybody and try and change it, but it's really not our place to do that. Okay. All right, but that's a good thing to point out, and we can have it in our note to the people when we send them the email, as migration, it doesn't always do everything perfectly. Please double check, take the time and go in. Okay? Thank you, Eric. Keep going.
Okay, so we don't need the designing the public page piece right now, you said?
No, only one person's dealing with that, and she's doing it alone, and nobody else ever goes in here, and I'm going to lock them all out.
Okay, then let's not worry about this right now.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so next piece. So at this point, once we have configurations in this public site out of the way, all the kind of long-term configurations are done. From this point forward, it's all the day-to-day operations of creating opportunities, and then from there, managing them. So the next piece that would be covered is orientations and trainings. Oh, excuse me, actually, let me pause there. I mean, back up. General settings. There are some things in here we should take a look at. I almost always forget about it. Nothing too critical, but this is where you would find things like the sync for the CRM, currently enabled, and the requirement to review all partner opportunities, which you currently have off, and the enabling for the all for good feeds, which I have to admit I don't know too much about this, but this is where that is enabled or disabled. So
what is it?
I don't know. That's the thing, is I need to look into that. I thought that was, I'm not sure, I thought that was a hands-on thing. I have to admit that I'm waiting on a response for what this is, so I may have to get back to you on that one.
Thanks, Eric. Okay. The partner opportunities is...
That's the really important one here.
Are we responsible for approving everything, or are the partners responsible for approving everything at a system-wide level, correct?
Correct, yeah. So if a partner posts an opportunity to your page, do you have to vet every single one of them? Or once they're approved, they can push freely to your pages. That's what that setting is. And that's actually the really important one I wanted to show here.
Partner opportunities. Yeah, and I think we review them.
You do review them?
Okay.
So you would want this on.
Yeah, I mean, we don't want,
That's going to take a long time.
Well,
you think it takes a lot of
yeah,
time?
I think it takes a lot of time. I
Yeah,
don't
it
think
would
we
be.
do.
It could be
The
quite an
organization-
extensive undertaking.
No, every opportunity comes to me in Janetta, and I am approving them individually.
Okay.
I mean, we can talk about it.
All right, well, go
but
ahead and
that's the way we've
Okay.
always done it.
On or off?
We will set that up in the
Okay.
way that it needs to be for this organization to operate, okay?
Okay. Then I'll let you guys work that out, but that's where you'll find it
Yeah.
under general settings. So glad we talked
Thank
about
you
that.
for that.
No problem. Alrighty. So now officially we have all those long-term configs out of the way, and we're now into the realm of creating opportunities. So there's three, I guess you could call, components to that. There are orientations and trainings and setting those up. There are your application forms, and then the actual curation of opportunities. We will probably not be getting to this opportunities piece today. That is actually a half an hour of content at least. So we will probably need to save that for our second training, which we can schedule at the end here. But let's at least get through orientations and trainings and designing application forms, and then we can see if there's any questions again. So orientations and trainings are a cool feature. as part of the opportunity creation process, we can require that people must attend a orientation or training, as the name implies. And we can then create those orientations and trainings, and we can track, has someone signed up for it? Did they actually show up? And the system in the opportunities will know what opportunities are required. Did the person show up? And once they're showed up, yeah, that's the word. Once they've shown up, gone, attended, the system will know this and allow them to move to the next step. Now, we'll see the details of that when we get to opportunities next time. But to actually be able to use that feature, we need to create the orientations. This is a very simple process. It's actually very similar to the opportunity creation process in some ways. So, we'll just kind of go through it really quickly. So let's do, for this purpose, let's switch to my demo system. And that way we don't make any bad trainings for you. Now, you do have a fair number of them. Most of them they in fact all look like they're outdated, so we don't have to worry too much about these. But let's go ahead and show you how to create a fresh one. Do you actually have any opportunities or orientations or trainings that your volunteers have to attend?
We do. What we do is we train volunteer coordinators to be those coordinators. So in order to be a volunteer coordinator, they have to go through a training.
Okay, cool. So that could be our example. So you would have an opportunity called volunteer coordinator, or something like that, that volunteer coordinators can sign up for. And as part of that, they have to go to an orientation. So let's create that orientation in my demo system, at least. So here we are in the trainings, orientation and training screen. There is a calendar view for it, just to point that out. We're going to go add training, and we're going to give a name for this training. So this is what's going to show online. This is what you're going to select for the opportunity. And this is usually something, pretty straightforward. So volunteer coordinator training. And so we're going to be doing this configuration kind of on a per session basis, as well as kind of, okay, I did phrase that well. We're going to be configuring the orientation as a whole, but we will be indicating when the individual sessions will be. So we're not really caring which session of the volunteer coordinator training someone goes to, as long as they've gone to a session. And so what we're doing here is we're representing the entirety of all trainings, and then under scheduling, we'll say when those individual sessions will be. I phrased that kind of poorly, but did that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, cool. I never phrased that quite right. I got to find a better way to do it. So with that in mind, our capacity here is for each individual session. So let's say for any given session of the volunteer coordination training, we can only hold, 5 people, 10 people in the room. So 10 people. Do we allow volunteers to cancel their own RSVP online? So if they go online and they sign up for a session, can they cancel that session for themselves, or do they have to contact you? Yes or no? Next, where do we do those trainings? So we're going to see in opportunities too, we can do multiple locations for advanced opportunities, but if we have multiple places we do the trainings, we'll have to put all of them in. We may only have the one, which is what I'm going to run with right here.
Can we incorporate online training too? Or I don't know if we do that. But
online trainings you can handle by this mechanism, but that might require a special conversation. Officially, these are meant to represent physical, in-person trainings. Online orientations can be tracked by this mechanism, but we may want to have a special conversation about those.
So Eric, Debbie, so this is just for us, correct? The host site?
Correct. This is for you as the Hands-On Jacksonville organization, for your coordinators and your volunteers.
Okay.
So why?
Go ahead. A partner agency.
Partner agencies can also create their own orientations and trainings for their own opportunities.
Oh, on their own site, yeah.
On their
Thank
own,
you.
well, not their own site, but for their own opportunities.
Okay, I just want to make sure they have the right to set that kind of opportunity. So when we're training an agency, we have to show them they have that capability of setting up their trainings as well.
Yes.
In the old system, everything was just one. You couldn't tell, and it didn't separate trainings and the other. This will.
Yes.
On your calendar.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Thank
Yeah,
you.
our kind of goal is a bit more self-service. I mean, obviously we do give you various powers not over your partners, but to help your partners. But in the end, the goal, at least from our kind of model, is self-service as an option. So that's why they have the option to do their own orientations and trainings. Okay, so training details. This is where you basically just say, what is this training? What is it for? You know, and the details about it that you might want to put online. So if you had any resources that you wanted them to review beforehand, you might put them here. You know, whatever you want to put here using the editor available. So that's our basic info. Next, we have the scheduling. So this is where we say, when are the individual sessions? So I'm going to do a very truncated, kind of hasty version of the scheduling piece. We'll do it again when we do orientation, actual opportunities. It's the same functionality there. So it'll be, we'll cover it again in the future. But basically what we do here is we select a location and we say what days or what time period orientations happen for, and when, for this, you know, using shifts, will the actual sessions happen. So maybe we do a weekly session for our volunteer coordinator training, and it started on June 1st, and you know it's going to go for a year, and then we'll reevaluate our schedule. And so it's every Wednesday, for example. So that's our schedule. Default location, weekly, from this date to this date, every Wednesday. But as you see, we can do other options, date exceptions, one time. We can do a series of one times. We can do it monthly on a given day of the month, ongoing, which is probably not too useful for our purposes on trainings, and other, which is used for erratic. And we'll see these more in details when we do opportunities. So I go ahead and save the schedule, and it's going to ask me to schedule what's called a shift, or what the sessions are. So this is where we could say, you know, every Wednesday we have a morning session. So I like calling them sessions. I think it's nice and clear. This is what the volunteer and you will see. You'll pick the day. So if you had selected the weekly option with, you know, Mondays and Tuesdays, you could have a Monday morning and a Tuesday morning. And then when is the actual session? From 10 a.m. to say 11, save. And so now what we've actually done here is we've created, you know, from this date to this date, a series of sessions. So every Wednesday we will see an option for a session. So we now have one on June 1st, June 8th, June 15th, June 22nd, June 29th, and January, and then we go into July, so on and so forth. So we actually have now created something like 52 different sessions by just doing that one configuration.
Can I beg you one more time for a time zone, please?
Does it?
I don't know how to get that finally, but
is it
we
not?
sit here on Coast to try and set times with you guys. It is so damn confusing to have that 3 hours difference.
Well, these so in my system they're on it's on Pacific, but in your system you should be on Eastern, so it should list every time in Eastern without need of time zone.
I know. It's okay. Don't worry about it. I'll talk to you about it again later.
Okay. I mean, if you want us to put the time zone like next to the time, we can do that. That's not too hard, I don't think.
Where it's more important is every time I try and sign up for a Fundly webinar, at the top in
I think we fixed that.
Everywhere, you know, it doesn't say it anywhere else on the opportunities. It should have on every time on that. PST.
Talking about something else.
Yeah, I'm just being cute. So I thought of it in this too. So sorry, I was being a smart ass. I shouldn't waste our time.
Okay, I think that's actually already in the works. I think I have to double check on that, but I know what you're talking about now. So this page, but putting that aside.
Oh,
I was being a brat.
I know what she's talking about, so we're good. But the scheduling makes sense for opportunities for you. I mean, excuse me, orientations and trainings for you.
thank you, Eric.
Okay, cool. So yeah.
All right. In Chicago, 2 time zones. Never mind. I'll be a brat. Go ahead. Keep going.
I know what you're talking about. I'll talk to Tanner about it. I think they've already got that in the works. So yeah, just say your location, when, what days, and what times, and that will create all your sessions. And then last but not least, you can publish you'll publish the orientations online. So this will push it Hello?
Live.
Basically, which apparently my internet's still being a problem. But what's going on here? Hello?
This will go to the calendar, correct?
Correct.
But they'll also be able to search for trainings as well, correct?
Correct. Yes. Weird. I hope my demo site, my publish page is being funny. But there is a publish page. I don't know why it's not displaying properly. My internet's giving me trouble still. And it would be where you'd say when you publish it on. And then at which point it would be available. So now I'm actually at your site. Open a new tab. It would push. Yes, my internet is suddenly being really bad. Okay. To your calendar, from whence you can sign up and what have you. They can also sign up from within their profiles after they've applied for an opportunity that requires it. And then I have advanced search options and so on and so forth. And we'll talk more about this calendar and what you can push here later when we get to opportunities. Currently, you have no trainings. Nothing's in blue. So we'll touch on this again. But this is where your orientations and trainings would also show up once published. So, all right. Any questions about orientations and trainings before we move on to the last thing we're going to cover today of application forms?
You said it should work together.
Yeah, when you're doing those trainings, you can set a requirement that they be an approved volunteer. Are there things you can set as prerequisites to a training?
Not currently. So currently, someone who has not yet actually applied could technically RSVP for the orientation.
Okay. But in order to RSVP, they need to have a profile.
Correct.
As basic as allow
Correct.
them.
Yes,
Okay.
correct. They will have to be registered as a volunteer of some sort. Even if they have not been applied for any opportunities, they must have at least an account.
Okay.
They just have to be
And then the
registered.
trainings become a skill at that point, once they've trained?
Sort of. I suppose you could track it as a skill. You could go into the
Yeah,
record
go
after
back.
the fact and put under some, as a skill. But the system will know that they've gone to that orientation training. Unless, of course, we made volunteer coordinator training, 2 or something like that. Then that's a separate orientation and training and tracked separately. But yeah, the system will remember this. If you have multiple opportunities that require this, if they've gone at least once, the second time they won't have to do it again because it remembers.
Okay.
And so on and so forth.
Eric, we had a question in regards to the calendar. Can we separate out, like, can we just look at an opportunities calendar and it have the functionality to also just separate out and just look at the training calendar?
Yeah,
Sort of drop.
Okay.
there's, let's pull that calendar back up.
Yeah, how do you do that?
You're going to
So,
the website.
If
You're seeing the
I'm on the calendar and I don't want to see opportunities, let's load it up. I can go ahead and
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to show.
Well, I wanted to see it. I didn't know what it was.
No, I was putting in it. And then see, you can do recurring, ongoing,
Yep.
or one time.
yep. So you can uncheck
Right.
all these options to modify it. Sorry, my it's loaded up so quickly just a moment ago.
That's because I think you're on us this time. Yep.
No, I was on you on the other time too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Erg, come on.
So if they're going to sign up for a certain event that requires certain training,
hmm
we set that option to where it
Yes.
doesn't allow them to sign up until they've shown that they've attended.
So what happens is they do apply. You get them added as basically a potential volunteer, or it puts them in the volunteer list, but it will say that their next step is pending orientation and training or pending attendance. And we'll see that when we actually manage volunteers in the second training. So, okay, there we go. So yeah, we can uncheck this opportunity and I can hide. So for example, I can say, I don't want to see opportunities. And so a volunteer can sort and filter and search and whatever they need to do if they want to. Okay. Anything else with orientations and trainings before we wrap up with application forms? Okay, so this one's easy. These are basically the questionnaires that will be presented for a given opportunity. So if I sign up for the volunteer coordinator opportunity, obviously you have certain questions you want to ask of me. And these application forms are where you get to ask those questions. If I can get anything to load, what is...
Go back to your, there you go. I was going to say, go back to your demo system.
Yeah, maybe that's, is it a system thing or is it my internet?
We have problems. We are so overloaded. We have so much stuff on this. We're still cleaning up. Okay.
Mm-hmm. I know it's, like I said earlier, like my internet cut out on me, so although usually that would impact my GoToMeeting too, so not sure what's going on there. Well, anywho, I mean, we aren't going to get to this today because my internet, something seems to have gone awry. But basically, these application forms are the questionnaires that you can ask. You can have as many questionnaires as, as many application forms as you want. A given application form can be used for different opportunities, though an opportunity can only have one application form. So, you know, if you had an opportunity that would kind of use the forms from two different forms combined, then you'd actually have to make a form with those questions combined together. There we go. It's pretty easy.
But things like the minor release form is not an application form. That's an agreement that is an separate
agreement.
From it. When you say only one application form, that's not talking about your minor. So I wanted to make sure they understood that.
Correct. Correct. Yes. And unfortunately, we can't require certain, you know, application agreements or certain application forms based on the age of the applicant. At least not at this time. So that does make application, the waivers and stuff for minors a little on the trickier side. And you could just make the minor agreement as an agreement and basically say, you know, and basically have it worded as, you know, I am not a minor, thus this doesn't apply to me, or I am a minor and I agree to these things. So you could kind of phrase it that way so that non-minors still sign it, but it's more of a formality at that point saying, yeah, I am over 18, or the minors, well, no, minors, they have to have their parents sign it, don't they?
Mm-hmm. They do.
It's been a while since I was a minor.
I was bringing it up in the fact that when you say only one, it brings up a panic in people's mind that they also might, in addition to an application form, want an agreement. And I was just trying to say they are two separate things.
That is correct, yeah. Although you can, and then you can add the agreements to the application form. See here, my demo system, I have two forms. I can add a new form. Editing a form is, excuse me?
Nothing, you got it. Keep
okay.
Editing very
So the agencies can use this form, or is that just for us?
No, this is the agencies too.
Yeah, they can have their own forms.
Yep, they have their own. This is part of what will have to be trained to the agencies. So they have some setup they've got to do too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So here's an example of a form. It just asks for name and birth date. I can add additional fields, including emergency contact, which I kind of consider you should always put on every form, custom data set, and agreements. So those are the kind of the ones of note. This one only because I think that you should always add that to every form. And then if you edit it, you can make it required. So I recommend that, as well as birth date. I kind of recommend making that required so you know how old they are. Just those two pieces of information are very valuable information. Beyond that, you know, whatever you need. If you have a custom data set you need to add in, go ahead and add it in. Make sure that was marked as opportunity. And then any agreements you may want to add in using volunteer agreement, and so on.
Okay.
Beyond that, name is required to be on a form. If they filled out something before, it will remember their answer, and they may just have to update their information.
Cool. So it will repopulate with the information that's there.
Correct. and then it gives them the opportunity to review and update.
Good.
And then if
Okay,
there's any new questions from the last time, they can fill that
when
information in.
we do these, are they printable, or how do we access them when they are filled out? What's the next step with them?
So the information, one, is stored against the contact record, thus completely available in reports. So you could build a report that pulls all the data, and kind of lay it out however you want. So you could do just a spreadsheet with their answers. Further, and we'll see this in the next training, when a volunteer is required to be approved for an opportunity, that's especially where you usually use application forms, you will get to, as part of the review process, to electronically view the application form and then either approve or reject it, and thus approve or reject the applicant. So, two ways you can access it.
And they become part of the applicant record?
Correct.
Each applicant?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Okay. So let's see here. So that is, I think, all we're going to get in today. We're at about 80 minutes, so we've gone way past the hour, but that's fine by me. I didn't have another training, so it worked out. What I recommend is we schedule the next training probably soon, so that we can talk about the actual creation of opportunities and the managing of volunteers. And that alone could be about an hour. We should be able to get into that conversation. Where's my mouse? There's my mouse. Things like mass scheduling and quick assign. So that's basically where we can cover these two topics, creating opportunities, and probably the actual creation of site coordinators. Though, depending on how much time we end up spending on opportunities and volunteer management itself, we may need to push that into a third where we'll talk about communications and organizations as well. So depends on how many questions we had today. We had a lot of questions, so it took us a bit longer. But that's kind of my thought for our next session, is opportunities and volunteer management. But we can obviously deviate as needed.
All right. Do you want us to email you with potential dates? Because I agree that needs to be done soon. We really are trying to get this done.
Absolutely.
Live.
Well, let's do this.
Trained.
Let me ask if there's any more questions, and then if there aren't any, let's go ahead and I'll stop the recording, and we can schedule it right now if you want to.
I actually just have a comment on, this is Cassandra, on the questions and concerns we had for searching team members.
Mm-hmm.
I would just kind of look at it almost like as though we're shopping. When we see an opportunity and you drop down on the search bar when you're shopping, if we want to see alphabetical, or if we want to see the team and then drop down to the members, almost just kind of
sort.
Yeah, just sorting, that would help us immensely, instead of having to search thousands and thousands, of individual members.
So I'm going to kind of counter that with a suggestion in the change in how you're going at it. So
Okay.
The example given to me earlier was that you went to the dashboard, you clicked on Teams, and then you went through manually trying to find it. I'd recommend don't do that. Just go straight to search. So if you're looking for somebody, as you mentioned, there can be thousands and thousands and thousands, because we do have thousands and thousands and thousands in your database. So dealing with actual raw open lists is really inefficient for that large a number. And it's something, the more data you get, the more, manual visual searches actually become kind of a hindrance. So that's why our system is designed based on actually running the search. So if I want somebody or a team, I'd actually do a quick or advanced search that would actually bring me a much smaller list, maybe only a couple dozen at most, that I can manage then by hand. And sorting at that point becomes negligible.
Right, I think at that point is where we need to drop down to a deeper search, is once we search for military or once we search for a team, is, like he said before, like Rick said, was to find the individual members and edit hours individually is where we need kind of a enhanced search drop down.
Well, at that point, we wouldn't really be doing searching more. We'd actually be in the team record. And I think that's what I need to look into, because you mentioned some conversations that I may not yet have become aware of. So I need to look in on that.
Yeah, because showing me the search right here, I immediately go, can I just go to a advanced search and say, show me teams, everybody who signed up under Naval Station Mayport, and it would bring me every person who has ever been on a Naval Station Mayport team.
For her to be able to do it by event.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we
Naval
need,
Station
is the
Mayport.
ability to pull this together, and we don't have that.
And that would tell you the team and the
Or could you search
So
by date?
basically, you'd want to
Okay.
do a search for a team and not just get the team, but actually the team members as well in the search results.
Yes, sir. That's what we're trying to do here, because we've got to be able to either log them in, contact them, email them, sign them in, verify their hours, something
Mm-hmm.
by that team. The
Well,
team
most of
captain
your-
or the volunteer
one-
coordinator has to be able to manage these teams.
When it comes to actually managing, that's what we're talking about in the next piece. You would not do that from your lists. You'd actually do that from the opportunity. So that there wouldn't be the scrounging around for who's on what, who's on first kind of things.
Then maybe we're asking the questions premature. We
That
need
may
to
be
see
possible.
that.
Yeah, now that I think about that, let's, I still have some things about teams I will still bring before and ask about, but let's hold off on some of that until we actually get into managing opportunities, and then it might become a lot more apparent, and maybe a lot more, and maybe you actually see that it might be more efficient than what you had in mind.
It's just a different way of looking at the list.
There's a different way, yeah. I mean, I recognize you're coming from a different system. They may have done things differently. We have our way of doing it, so it might be that we have to make some adjustments as we've been doing, but we may also need to modify a little bit, the way that you've been doing it, so that it fits with our system and maybe it's more efficient. Hopefully, that's the hope, and that's the plan.
The only drawback looking for an opportunity search is you will have military organizations that participate in finding opportunities in a month.
Yeah, we will readdress that. If you could look at it on your side from our need, and we will openly see how what you show us next session matches that, and I think we may marry in the middle somewhere.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping. And then if we need, and then we'll make modifications as appropriate.
Okay, all right. Date and time.
Yes. So let me pause recording.